Hey, welcome back to another My Sales Day podcast. I'm delighted that you're here. And the fact that you are says a lot about your dedication and commitment to growing your professional career and learning or being reminded of skills that you need to activate on a daily basis to win at the sales life. Now, this particular episode is really important for me because it was the first one I ever did for My Sales Day, first one I ever did for anyone. And let's just say I look back and I say, well, I've learned a lot about how to be a host who gets the most out of my guests. My guest in this show is fantastic. Darin Leach is somebody whom I've known for many years, and he's a very accomplished seller. So you're going to learn a lot from the threads that we hit on. But for me, I look at this and I say, isn't this symbolic of what we go through in the sales life? What about that very first presentation you did in front of a big group? Or a negotiation that you had with huge ramifications. Maybe it didn't look like what it looks like today when you execute upon those particular skills. That's the point of the sales life. We grow, we practice, we work on it, and we get better. You're going to enjoy the show. But first, I want to remind you that if you are not a subscriber to the My Sales Day newsletter, please head over to mysalesday.io and subscribe. And if you are a subscriber, thank you so much for your patronage. When you are a subscriber on a daily basis, you're going to get 90-second read in your box every day, giving you a skill tip that's going to help you win that day. And we all know that's what sales is about. Incremental wins that get you to the goals that you have. So again, whether you do it right now or after the show, go to mysalesday.io. And I promise you, the newsletter is far more polished than what you're going to see in my first episode here. Here's now me and Darin. Thanks. Darin Leach, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Great to see you.
So good to, yeah, likewise. So good to see you. Listen, I'm so glad we're doing this. I'm so glad we're doing this mainly because, just to be honest, I've admired your sales skills and accomplishments for a long time. You, in my mind, are a true sales warrior. And while I'm trying to push the show's tagline that we are the podcast by sellers for sellers, ultimately we feature warriors here. And we all know warriors are a special kind of seller. So you're my warrior for today. Hey, so our audience is caught up. You and I sold for the same team years ago, which meant I got to personally watch your moves. To me, you were a seller who combined a lot of grace and EI with a heavy dose of skills application. And of course, I watch your skills evolve beautifully over the years. In my opinion, you're the epitome of a seller who gets that skills are the currency to achieve goals and ultimately get what you want. Damn, that kind of sounded like a eulogy. Sorry, bud. you're still alive and you're not a bot, right?
Correct. I am here in flesh.
Okay, good. Same here. Never a bot. All right, we got a show to do, so let's get to it. First chapter, it's called I Don't Mean to Brag, but click. That was the spotlight getting turned on. Ready? This should be fun for you because now you get to brag and boast about the one defining win of your career. But in all seriousness, take me and the listeners through what that defining career win looked like and maybe give some examples so we have something to latch on to and work with.
Yeah. Well. First of all, thank you for the wonderful eulogy. Hopefully, we can use this for when that day does come. But I would say that early in my career, the biggest, win that still holds true today because it was just so large, so complex. It was known throughout the industry that everyone was going after. Was a deal that I won with the help of many others, so many others, with
Yeah.
winning the business for Subway restaurants. They put out an RFP to basically build and manage all of their mobile apps across 93 countries, as well as to manage and basically provide the foundation for them to run mobile advertising to those apps across 93 countries. And I was then working with Velti, which that's where you and I met. And it was a great win that took about 8 to 9 months to actually win it because it was an RFP that was sent out to like 35 plus vendors. Every
Whoa.
major company in New York was going after it. Everyone was talking about it at events and, hey, are you going after that subway contract? And when I look back on it now, it really helped inform the way I sell today because everything was so detailed at every step of the process. Like
Yeah.
the first process was even responding to the RFP with documentation, maybe some slides that you really had to be crisp on because you knew that they were going to be getting packages from 35 other companies, and so you had to figure out a way to really express your value and the value proposition that you were going to put forth in front of them without actually being there and presenting it.
Yeah, just to make the cut, just to make the
Yeah,
cut.
yeah, and it was
Right.
very competitive. And so as each step, as we made it through each step, we did have a big presentation up there that was like an hour and a half long. You had your CTO who had very specific, goals of what he wanted to find in a vendor from a technology perspective. You also had the chief marketing officer that had other goals and other things that he was trying to accomplish. So you had a very strong contingent of executives that each had very different roles in how they were going to view the different vendors that came in. So you had to be able to talk to each of those different constituents in that presentation. And then once you got through the presentation and actually had the follow ups, you had to be very crisp because it was very formalized in the process, and you knew that you were competing again. It started at 35, then I think it went down to 10, then 5, then 3, and then we won after that competition. But getting into like the negotiations, like we spent probably 2 months in negotiating because it wasn't a standard sale or contract where you were just trying to run a media campaign. It was how are you going to develop mobile apps across 93 countries and 35,000 stores globally. But the U.S. had very different needs than what Trinidad and Tobago had, because they may have two
Right.
stores on that island. So it was a huge win. We were going public at the time on the Nasdaq. Velti was, and so it was one of those keynote wins that the CEO from Greece would check in, every few weeks saying, "Hey, how's that subway deal,
Yeah.
coming along?" And then once we won it,
Yeah.
it was kind of the account that we would highlight to Wall Street, and then after we went public. And so I had to
Sure.
develop that relationship. I was bringing the CMO to New York from Connecticut and putting him up in a hotel where he could go speak to bankers, the following day with our
Yep.
CEO. So, as a young seller, it was a lot of fun, but a lot of stress and pressure to make it happen. But it was well worth it.
Awesome. That truly is a defining win, and I'm proud of you. And by the way, even though we worked together, I never heard that story. I when I hear that story, I hear value prop, and because of the different constituents, you have to make the value prop mean something different and something valid for every constituent. I hear presentation skills. I hear detail and attention to detail with follow up. I hear negotiation skills. I hear herding cats. I mean, just a lot of chefs in the kitchen that you have to satisfy. Good one. Good one. Hey, let's build on that and go towards the next segment of our show. I call it cliche or valid. I don't know about you, but I'm constantly looking at material on the web to motivate me in my sales career and to inspire me. And I see quotes and mantras all the time. And some of them, I got to be honest, I call bullshit on. Like, that's a cliche, or that
Yeah.
stuff is stupid. What are some that you've heard that you just think are like, that's lame. But also let's celebrate some that we think are inspiring too. Throw out a couple for me.
So I don't really want to call out any, cliche quote. There's plenty of them out there. I mean, anyone that's
Yeah, and
listening can.
I'll call a few out, by the way.
Okay,
But
okay.
but
But
go
but
on, go on.
I have some that I really like that I've used throughout my career, and one of them is everyone has the will to win, which is a big sports quote.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
but my friend Bob Knight had a little bit of a different take on that, and he said, yes, everyone has the will to win, but very few have the will to prepare to win. And I think that is a really,
Oh,
really good one
mm,
because sales is a professional expertise, and you just can't show up and wing a presentation and hope that you're going to win a deal on your personality alone. Like you really need to understand your product or the solution that you're providing, what's the value that that's going to provide to the buyer that you're trying to sell to. And so I think that preparation is very, very important, and I really, really love that quote. Another one that I've heard that I don't know who actually said it. However, it is in the digital ad space, the best sellers need to become comfortable in a world of chaos. Everything is
Mm-hmm.
changing. With technology. I mean, Google saying that they're not going to deprecate the third-party cookies like they said they would. They were going to, and you have an entire industry that's been planning for that for the past 3, 4+ years, and that changes things a little bit. And so you have this world of what you sell today is going to be different than what you're selling 6 months from now. And if you're not comfortable with that, you need to probably find a different vertical to be selling in, because the our industry is changing and evolving at such a rapid pace that you always need to be out on the leading edge of understanding how things are going to change. Like AI is coming down next, and what does that mean? We don't know, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of the
Yeah.
same as back in the early days. Everyone said that this was going to be the year of mobile in 2008, and they were still saying that in 2013. So
Yeah.
AI is
Yeah.
kind of, you have these innovations that come to market that you have to kind of wrap your head around, and it takes some time to do
Well,
that.
no matter the industry, change is prevalent, and I like that quote too. I got, unfortunately, one that I'm going to call bullshit on. You and I both are fans of Dilbert. Many of our listeners are as well. Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert. Check out what this guy said. Quote, "Losers have goals, winners have systems." All right. Whether cliche or just plain BS, I call BS. Although I adore Dilbert, Scott could not have been thinking about sellers when he says losers have goals, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the
I
first
mean,
thing you have every quarter, right?
yes, yes. So these are the types of things where, like, just as sellers walking around trying to get inspired by all these sayings and these quotes out there, don't just take it at superficial face value. Like, put some thought into it and question some of these people, just like you're doing here. Here's a good one that I like. Seth Godin said this: "The reason it seems that price is all your customers care about is that you haven't given them anything else to care about." How does that land with you, Darin?
I love it. I love it. I think that, there are people that I've met throughout the industry that, and either worked with or worked beside or worked for me or worked at other places. And, they never really, they always come back as at the objection of why they can't close a deal. It's the price.
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
take a step
Right.
back and getting back to that prepare to win, then you need to make sure that, it's never going to come down to price, in my opinion.
No.
If you're really doing the right thing and selling the value,
Yeah.
you're going to get the deal. But you have to do the job to make sure that the customer understands the value that you're going to provide and how that's going to help their
Yeah.
business.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. Let's turn the page. Next chapter. The week in review, my sales day highlights. So, what hit a nerve this week that you read in the newsletter that you really liked, that spurred a topic for us to toss
Yeah,
around?
I liked the "I'll spend my time my way," which, I love Frank Sinatra and that song. However, I think that that is going back to, like, sellers who oftentimes think that they can just wing it, and again, like, not do the things that it takes to become a good seller and to manage their time. I mean, time management is probably one of the top three things that will identify whether this seller is going to be a great seller or a sub great seller or subpar seller.
So, so I mean, you're not going to find disagreement with me, but how did you learn that specifically in your career? What did you, when was the light bulb moment for you when you said, damn, if I don't like figure out time management, I'm toast?
Yeah, I think it was early in my career. I have always been proud of the hunter mentality that I had early in my career. It wasn't always directed in the right and with the right energy. I would just send out a bunch of emails, place phone calls. I would have the activities in Salesforce the most of any seller on any team that I was at. However, I think it's really getting into managing your pipeline. it's not just managing your time, but everyone has a pipeline and a sales funnel. And at the top, you have outreach, which is just trying to get that first meeting, right? And there's a ton of
Yep.
effort and time that goes into that. And you're trying to get that first meeting. And then once you have that first meeting, you present. And hopefully, if you do your job well, you have a follow up where there's some business to talk about and you're trying to get to a proposal stage. And then if you can get to that proposal stage, then you give that proposal, and then it's about negotiating or the trying to get that deal closed. And a lot of sellers that have a big book of business are maybe too focused on one or the other, because you need to be focusing on each of those and have like the time management where sometimes, if you're trying to close three big deals, you may not be sending out, 100 emails or phone calls a week, but that's okay. But you still have to do 20 or 30, right? Because if you get those deals closed, you're going to end up with a very light sales funnel to then go and replace those deals with new deals, right? And so I think the time management that I'm talking about there and with that article is really about making sure that you're managing your time and having the foresight to look at your business not only from a quarter to quarter basis, but look at it at an annual basis and looking at it from a little bit more of a long term view.
Yeah. The post you're talking about that was titled "I'll Spend My Time My Way" dropped on 9 August, not too long ago as of this taping. And one of the things I was trying to get through with the audience is the concept of don't be shamed if your manager is trying to help you with your efficiencies, with how you spend your time. Don't be embarrassed, because time management is a skill that's really hard for people to change and to develop. For me, it took me years to learn time management skills, and I wish somebody had given me some help along the way. So be open-minded to where the time is being spent. Be aware of where your time is going, and ask for help on how days are structured. But it gets back to the one thing, and you hit on it, which is if your time is not aligned against your goals, which are driven by account pursuit, then you're going to be wasting time. Let's move. How about your sales life? I love this chapter. It's just a glimpse into how you think generally about the sales life. I refer often in the newsletter to the sales life as a representation of the behaviors, the activities, the things that we have to do. Talk to me about perhaps, what you've learned from buyers, the most important thing that you've learned from buyers.
I believe that the most important thing, and I didn't necessarily understand this at the beginning of my career, but a few years into it, I started to see it, and I wanted to help the buyers elevate their career. Like, I want to help them make them look good. And that is a very important, I think, element rather than just going in and positioning your product. But that personal level of understanding your buyer and what's important to them, and how is this, relationship going to help them establish, further their career. And I think as my career has gone on, I have a lot of friends that in the industry that I've sold to 20 years ago that are now, the VP or C-level executives at major agencies. And we saw that relationship. So I think understanding that, sales is a relationship, but you got to understand, other than just taking someone out and taking them to dinner or taking them to drinks or to a Knicks game, it's really learning and asking them questions about what's important to them, right? In terms of their job, what's next for them in their career. So I think from my perspective, that has been very, rewarding, but also very beneficial, just from some of the friendships and relationships that I've developed throughout the years.
Yeah, it's weird though. Sometimes I feel, am I doing this because I truly care about the person, or because I just want to close the account, right? But
Yeah.
genuinely, you've always struck me as someone who has a lot of empathy and a lot of desire to help people. And at its foundation, that is what sales is about: is really helping people and relieve some burden from them. Any good examples on things you've done for buyers that could have been like, am I doing this to manipulate decisions, or do I really, really care about the buyer? Anything in that
I
along
was
those lines?
never, I was never, and I have a lot of friends in the industry that have done this, so I apologize beforehand. I was never, buying jeans for someone or buying, custom Nikes for someone.
Buying business.
Yeah, that to me was like very impersonal. And so I would rather take someone out to a nice restaurant and spend that 2 or 3 hours with them versus spending the same amount of money giving them something that I'm not even going to really be with them. Right? I may be them with them for like 30 minutes or 45 minutes, but I wanted to do something that, we kind of did together that was, um, it didn't make me. I mean, I guess buying someone dinner, there is a little, cliche to that, but yet, I think that I kind of avoided doing things that I didn't really feel good about.
Yeah, well, listen, these days, obviously, with a lot of corporate restrictions in place on what gifts can be received and whatnot, there's a little bit more clarity around that ambiguity in the sales game. But the bottom line is, learn what your customers care about, understand what the buyer wants, and jeans or a bottle of booze is pretty fleeting in terms of an impression it leaves. Hey, one more with the seller life, and then we're going to move to close and give our audience their day back. But when we talked about this pod and preparing for it, I know we had a little spirited conversation about walking away from deals that aren't closing and being curious about how much do I hang on? What do I do? Let's try to get your opinion on that in 30 seconds or less. Like that's a tough one, but
Yeah, it,
what
it,
do we
it,
what do we
it
do there?
yeah, it's one of the most important skills to learn, in my opinion, and it's probably one of the that takes the longest because anyone that's a good seller is very competitive, and no one likes to feel like they're giving up on a deal. Especially if you've built a pipeline that put that deal was important to your pipeline, and so walking away from it is defeating in so many ways. But sometimes it's the best thing to do in that moment because then going back to your sales funnel, what are you devoting your time to, and how are you managing your time management if you're putting all your baskets in this deal that is not going to close? So I think getting the level of understanding that, hey, look, there's nothing I can do to get this deal over the line, um, you know kind of wash your hands of it and keep the relationship with the client and say, hey, look, I um, respectfully hope that we can, keep the line of communication open because in the advertising business, like, there's future business to go after. But try and keep that relationship, but to walk away and go focus on other deals that can help you hit your number.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we never want to give it up, but sometimes we do, and then follow up in a couple 3 months. So that
Yep.
customer knows you're thinking about them, which should be genuine because guess what? Tons of things change. They could have chosen another vendor. That vendor could be falling on their face. A lot of things could be going on. So it's really important to stay visible all the time. Um, awesome. Really, really fun stuff. Let's close it down with one thing. What's the one thing that you want these fine listeners who are with us to take away from today? The one thing that you offer as part of the Darin Leach playbook. What do you got?
Selling is a professional expertise, and you need to approach it in that fashion and understand the details of in the context of what you're selling, the value of it, the buyers of it, and the difference between a CTO or a CMO. Understand the different constituents that are going to be buying your product, and practice and prepare, which are two of the hardest things to do sometimes in professional services, jobs that we work in. But I guarantee you today, the Olympics closing ceremony was last night. Guarantee you there are people that are going to be practicing this week for LA 28, and that
Yeah.
mentality is very important. And sellers that I know that do really really well are always preparing, practicing, and updating their skill set. And so I think that is the thing that I would take away from that.
Good one. Yeah, the one thing I would share that I learned just from you, and I never heard that anecdote about the subway case study, but boy, there were so many skills that had to be applied there. And I know that every one of our listeners appreciates that. Yeah, sales is a game of a multitude of skills that are being applied simultaneously, all the time. But to keep moving forward and make sure you get that signal from the buyer, keep going, and to qualify the buyer. Are we doing good? And I'm sure you did that a lot in that Subway deal where it was like, can we get to the next stage yet? Yes, we can. So love that and all the skills you talked about in there, the Prezo skills, the value prop application, et cetera. This has been great. Let me wrap it up because, again, our audience is busy. They got stuff to do. I'm really excited about some upcoming posts in the MySalesDay newsletter. There's one in particular that's going to come right soon after people listen to this podcast, early September. It's titled Better Closing, Qualify Better. And the concept is people focus on the skill of closing and they say, teach me how to close better. But they don't appreciate that qualifying throughout the funnel. And when you work an account from top to bottom, that's the defining skill that sets you up for closing. So it's needs analysis work, objection handling work, making sure value prop is reinforced and customized for the actual buyer at all times during the funnel. That's crucial. So that's just one post that's coming up. Hey, shameless plug. It's my podcast. I get to do it. All right, let's close this great session with Warrior Darin Leach by reminding you of the MySalesDay mission. It's simple, really. I want the newsletter and the podcast, this podcast, to help you become the best sales professional you can be. Even if it's a small little thing that this show or the newsletter helps you think about and work on, it could make a huge difference in your selling day. Personally, like Darin will agree, I've sold through hurricanes and sunny weather both. And I know how hard it is to stay positive and keep the momentum going. But no matter what you sell or how many years you've been selling, you need inspiration to keep you focused on skills and best practices. Final shameless newsletter plug. If you're not a subscriber, go to MySalesDay.io and sign up. It'll be the best thing you can do for your career and your customers. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for listening to MySalesDay. It was great having you here. For more, listen to our other episodes on your favorite podcast platform. And while you're there, leave us a review. I care what you think. And because I'm a seller like you, I got thick skin, so I can take anything you got. You can also visit MySalesDay.io to join our email list and community dedicated to sellers just like you. MySalesDay is a podcast by sellers for sellers. And if you got something out of today's episode, help out a friend by sharing this episode with them. MySalesDay is proudly produced in partnership with Westport Studios. Views and opinions expressed by guests on MySalesDay are their own and may not reflect the views and opinions of their organization. Start your sales day the right way with MySalesDay. I'll see you in our next episode and in the daily newsletter.